This is just an unbelievable instance of spin when it comes to January 6th. So we've talked a lot about this hearing that took place yesterday. We started at the beginning of the show with the statements made by Biden administration officials about the greatest domestic terror threat in the United States, which Merrick Garland and others believe is white supremacist domestic terror. And I believe the numbers confirm that that's the case. We also learned just in the last segment, because of Donald Trump's former acting Secretary of Defense, that more than 3 hours went by between when the riots started and when there was finally an authorization given for the National Guard to clear the Capitol. We then saw questioning from Republican Congressman Jody Hice, where he argued that the real victims on January 6th, it wasn't the American people, it wasn't the police in Washington, D.C. The real victims on January 6th, says Jody Hice, were Trumpists who were there in support of Donald Trump. I know. Republican Congressman Jody Hice is not exactly a brilliant guy. And this is the case he tried to make during yesterday's hearings. You really have to be capable of some incredible revisionist history and departures from logic to even try to claim this. But Jody Hice tries. I'm going to play some of the lead up here in this video, and then look at how he tries to portray the Trump rioters as the real victims.
Between 1:10 and 1:15, President Trump ends his speech and tells attendees to peacefully and patriotically make their voices heard at the Capitol. About 1:50, the Capitol is breached. Now, in this timeline, it would have been about 2 o'clock before the earliest attendees of Trump's speech could have arrived at the Capitol. So the Capitol is attacked at the right shortly after the president begins his speech. It's breached before individuals could have gotten there. Where is the real narrative in all of that? Another narrative I want to bring up is that the media claims that the tragic death of Officer Brian Sicknick was a result of pro-Trump mobs bashing his skull with a fire extinguisher, which we all know now did not happen. Officer Sicknick, his autopsy revealed that he suffered no blunt trauma. In fact, his mother has since come out saying he died of a stroke. In fact, it was Trump supporters who lost their lives that day, not Trump supporters who were taking the lives of others. You go down the list here. Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed by a Capitol Police officer. Kevin Greeson suffered a heart attack. Roseanne Boylan reportedly was crushed by rioters, and Benjamin Phillips died of a stroke. So the narrative needs to be cleared up. The truth matters.
The people he's naming that died because they chose to be there in direct violation of the law. I don't think any death is to be celebrated here. People who have been watching the show know that that's always been my perspective. But look at the people that he's naming. He names Ashley Babbitt, who was shot by police. Well, that's true. Babbitt was one of the many military service members who went to the riots against the law, trespassing. Police officers have been cleared of wrongdoing in her death. She was shot while trying to breach doors within the Capitol. She was already trespassing. She has already broken the law merely by being in there. She was trying to breach further doors in the Capitol, and the officer has been cleared because he believed he was acting in self-defense and the defense of members of Congress that he was sworn to protect. In any other scenario, these right-wingers would be saying that was a justifiable police shooting. In this case, they're saying the Trumpists were the victims here. He mentions Kevin Greeson. Kevin Greeson suffered a heart attack. That's true. Kevin Greeson was there, suffered a heart attack, reportedly after tasing himself while allegedly trying to steal a painting from the Capitol. He shouldn't even have been there. He was committing a crime by being there. He got his hands on a taser. He tased himself and subsequently had a heart attack. That's not a Trump supporter being a victim. That's a criminal for whom their criminal acts went wrong. And we're not celebrating the death, but to say that that proves that the Trumpists are victims, not a very accurate statement to make. Jody Hice mentioned Roseanne Boylan. Roseanne Boyland was crushed by rioters. That is completely true. She was crushed by a stampede of Trumpists, of which she was a part, as they were all breaking into the Capitol. It's sad, but why was she there? She was there breaking the law along with these other Trumpists who trampled her. It's horrible, but that's what happened. And then lastly, Jody Hice mentions Benjamin Phillips. Benjamin Phillips died of a stroke. He says that's true. He was there breaking the law as well. He wasn't killed by Antifa. He wasn't killed by police. And to frame Trumpists as victims who were minding their own business, just looking at the Capitol, and then were killed either by police or by Antifa or left-wingers, to frame them that way rather than as the perpetrators that they are of a seditious attempt to overturn the election is just pathetic. But Jody Hice is exactly the type of guy who would try it. I'm not going to give you his full kind of greatest hits. You can go back in our archives and find some of the horrible things that Jody Hice has said over the last decade, but it's a degree of spin that should really make anybody dizzy. It's a sort of war is peace, freedom is slavery. Like, it's that type of misinformation. These were not invited guests who were just looking at a painting at the Capitol and then they were run over by a mob. They were trespassing as part of that mob. And I'm trying to remember the line that conservatives often use after police shootings, at least as it refers to Ashley Babbitt. And they say stuff like, you know, if they just followed the law and orders from police, nobody would have gotten shot, hurt, or killed, or whatever the case may be. That it applies to Ashley Babbitt. I'm not glad she died, but this is the logic that they give us whenever there's a police shooting that we look at and we say, that seems insane. That seems like the police did something wrong. They were breaking the law already. They were criminals. They weren't listening to what police were saying. And also, by the way, the version of events that Jody Hice is kind of trying to present here, it's almost like he doesn't realize there's video of the entire thing. We saw how it all went down. And it makes it even more pathetic, but he doesn't care. And this guy really is one of the most pathetic members of Congress out there. Just check out, go to my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and type Jody Hice David Pakman, and you'll see his long track record of absurdity. If you are anything like me, you probably aren't thrilled with the idea of going into a doctor's office right now. And thankfully, there's a practical and affordable way to take control of your health and get personalized care from the comfort of your home. It's a service called SteadyMD. They're one of our sponsors. You take a quiz, you get matched with a licensed primary care physician who understands your health needs. You have a 1-hour video call with your new doctor. You establish a meaningful relationship with them. And after that, your doctor is available to you anytime by text, phone, or video chat. This is not a random doctor on call. Each doctor at SteadyMD has a limited number of patients, so they actually have time to listen to you. You get the personal attention that you deserve. They can do almost everything an in-person doctor can do: perform medical evaluations, talk to you about health concerns, send prescriptions to your home or local pharmacy, and anything they can't do online, they'll quickly set you up with an in-person provider to do, things like blood tests, as an example. You don't need insurance. It's only $99 a month with no other fees or copays. There are so many practical advantages to using SteadyMD for primary care, and it's also so much more affordable. Go to steadymd.com/Pakman to take the free quiz, see which doctor is right for you. I took their quiz. They matched me with a doctor who specializes in my particular health needs and situation. The doctor they gave me is a really perfect fit for me and my medical needs. There's no risk, no commitment to get started. Just click the link right underneath this video.